So I've got this theory that in order to be a leftist, you either have to be extremely ignorant or extremely evil. Now let me be clear, I'm not saying that if you hold any liberal views you're ignorant or evil. In fact, there are several people with liberal views, such as Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan, who I very much respect. And while some people might say that these guys are conservative, I would argue, and I think they would agree, that they're classic liberals. You also have people like Bill Ackman. Bill was essentially born into the left, into a wealthy New York household, went on to make even more money for himself, and then donated lots of that money to places like Planned Parenthood and Harvard. After the October 7th attacks, however, Bill started to become very bothered by the rampant anti-Semitism that he saw, and by the left's refusal to call it out, especially at Harvard. This opened his eyes to the hypocrisy of the left, as well as their anti-American agenda and just their utter wickedness, and he took a stand against them. In other words, as Bill became more and more aware of what was actually going on, or less ignorant, if you will, his views changed. Now that's not to say that he's conservative, and in fact, I'm sure he would still consider himself to be a liberal, but I think we can all agree that he's not a leftist. I maintain that in order to be a diehard leftist, you either have to be very ignorant or very evil. We see examples of the ignorance on our college campuses, where we have kids holding Queers for Palestine signs, seemingly completely unaware of how ridiculous this is, and in some cases not even knowing what happened on October 7th, and we see the evil in our politicians, our media, and academia. I could probably give a million examples of this, but just off the top of my head, I'll go with Gavin Newsom at the debate with Ron DeSantis, where he not only danced around every question he was asked, but tried to insist that allowing children to come from all over the country to California to have their genitals mutilated without their parents' consent, or even without their parents' knowledge, that's somehow virtuous and for the sake of the child. I personally can think of very few things that are more evil than that. So today we're going to focus on the latter variety of leftist, the evil leftist. Not Gavin Newsom, but three individuals who are equally as slimy. Here we have the presidents of Harvard, UPenn, and MIT refusing to say that calls for genocide of the Jews is a violation of their campus policies. Let's take a look.
Madam Chair, I'd like to yield the balance of my time to the gentlewoman from New York.
Dr. Kornbluth, yes. At MIT, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate MIT's code of conduct or rules regarding bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
If targeted at individuals, not making public statements.
Yes or no? Calling for the genocide of Jews does not constitute bullying and harassment?
I have not heard calling for the genocide for Jews on our campus.
But you've heard chants for intifada.
I've heard chants which can be anti-Semitic depending on the context when calling for the elimination of the Jewish people.
So those would not be according to the MIT's code of conduct or rules?
That would be investigated as harassment if pervasive and severe.
Ms. McGill, at Penn, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's rules or code of conduct? Yes or no?
If the speech turns into conduct, it can be harassment, yes.
I am asking specifically calling for the genocide of Jews. Does that constitute bullying or harassment?
If it is directed and severe or pervasive, it is harassment.
So the answer is yes.
It is a context-dependent decision, Congresswoman.
It's a context-dependent decision. That's your testimony today. Calling for the genocide of Jews is depending upon the context. That is not bullying or harassment. This is the easiest question to answer yes, Ms. McGill. So is your testimony that you will not answer yes?
If it if the
yes
speech
or
becomes
no?
if the speech becomes conduct, it can be harassment, yes.
Conduct meaning committing the act of genocide? The speech is not harassment? This is unacceptable, Ms. McGill. I'm going to give you one more opportunity for the world to see your answer. Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's code of conduct when it comes to bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
It can be harassment.
The answer is yes. And Dr. Gay, at Harvard, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
It can be, depending on the context.
What's the context?
Targeted as an individual, targeted at an individual.
It's targeted at Jewish students, Jewish individuals. Do you understand your testimony is dehumanizing them? Do you understand that dehumanization is part of anti-Semitism? I will ask you one more time. Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
Anti-Semitic rhetoric, when
And is it anti-Semitic rhetoric?
Anti-Semitic rhetoric, when it crosses into conduct that amounts to bullying, harassment, intimidation, that is actionable conduct, and we do take action.
So the answer is yes, that calling for the genocide of Jews violates Harvard Code of Conduct, correct?
Again, it depends on the context.
It does not depend on the context. The answer is yes, and this is why you should resign. These are unacceptable answers across the board.
So first I want to say that the entire hearing was about 5 hours and 15 minutes, and I highly recommend you check it out in more detail if you have some extra time. I'll go on and leave a link below. Second, I want to say how creepy I find it that they all say the exact same thing. It's like they've been given what they're allowed to say and they refuse to go off script. They're totally fine looking completely brain dead, but they won't actually answer the questions. Also, and someone mentioned this during the hearing, you know that if you replace the word Jew with the word black or gay or trans, you know for a fact all three of these people would be saying it's absolutely a violation of campus policy to call for the extermination of these groups. It's really telling that they won't say that about the Jews. And finally, I want to cover what I think will probably be the left's biggest argument against this video. I'm sure they'll talk about how conservatives are always yelling for free speech and now we seem to be against it, but the difference is the call to action, the call to violence. See, I can say I don't like someone. I can say that I don't like a group of people. But if I start calling others to violence against a group of people, that's different. The call to action, that's the difference. I feel like a lot of us probably understand that, but some people can't seem to get their head around it. And it's really sad to me, but I guess that's just where we are. Well anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe, and feel free to leave a comment below with any thoughts you have. Until next time, take care.